Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, coming to you on a Thursday night after watching the Daytona Duels. We now have the starting lineup for the Daytona 500 on Sunday, as well as some controversial things that happened at the end of the second duel, and a few key takeaways from the next-gen car racing at Daytona. This is the first time we've seen the next-gen car in packs, in 20-car packs at Daytona, so we'll try to get to all that. So let's start out by talking about the first duel race, duel number 1 on the night. Of course, we had 2 of them, and the Fords... A takeaway from both of the dual races really are the Fords are very, very fast when they get in a group together, and that could be very important when we get to the race on Sunday. Could these Fords work together to be able to go by the Toyotas and by the Chevrolets way quicker than the other manufacturers can? Obviously, like we know, the Chevrolets are really quick in single car runs. They dominate qualifying every year. I talked about that last night. But the Fords this year seem to be exceptionally well together. Watching the cars run in at least the first duel, you could tell they were way faster than the other manufacturers. And then in the second duel, which I'll talk a little bit more about that later, they were just outdoing the Toyotas. I mean, the Toyotas had more cars in their pack, and the Fords were still just blowing them out the water. So, not too sure what the Fords have, but they have something over the other manufacturers right now. Obviously, that can change when you double the field going into the Daytona 500, double the amount of cars, but definitely something to note. I feel like every year when we go after the duels, it seems like the Fords always look faster, and the Fords don't always win the Daytona 500, as we know. So we'll have to see if that continues to be a trend, but the Fords just seemed even just on a whole nother level tonight, which will be interesting to see if that does continue when we put these cars in a 40-car field at Daytona. Another thing that I took note after both of the duels is it seems like tires didn't really play as big a role. Older tires, or taking 2 tires on a pit stop, as we saw, essentially won Brad Keselowski the first duel race and got the top 4 Fords their top 4 position. The Chevrolets, Chase Elliott, Larson, they all took 4 tires in their pit stop. It did absolutely nothing. The Fords were still faster than the Chevrolets in their group than the Chevys. The Fords were way faster than the Chevys were in their group, even with the 4 tires versus 2 tires. So that's obviously another interesting thing. Maybe we'll have to look at that going into the Daytona 500. If you want to make up some time, if you think you're going to have a long green flag run, which is possible, maybe you would take 2 tires instead of 4. I'm sure we'll see this all play out on Sunday afternoon. And by the way, this is the first time we have seen the cars have pit stops with the single lug nuts, and we looked. It takes about 8 seconds to do a 2-tire stop and about 12 seconds to do a 4-tire stop and fill the car up with fuel. So that was obviously interesting to see. Not too much slower to change these tires. I believe it was like 14 seconds for a 4-tire stop, 15 seconds at the most for all 5 lug nuts. So not extremely quicker pit stops. So that's obviously something that's going to still have to play a key role. We'll have to see how that all plays out going into the 500. Like I said, we had 20 car fields tonight, but there's still so much unknowns with these brand new race cars going into Daytona on Sunday afternoon. So in the first duel race, Kaz Grala and the money team, Floyd Mayweather's team, actually did make it in the Daytona 500 after it seemed like they wouldn't. He actually got a pit road speeding penalty on his pit stop. And there was some talk that penalty could have been caused by some glitches in the dash where the speedometer was maybe messed up, or the lights as far as showing what the RPM is was maybe messed up, or not doing it correctly, not working correctly. There's some speculation that might have been the problem. I don't know if that was the problem yet. We'll have to find out a little bit later on. But either way, he still makes it in. JJ Yeley looked like he had it. JJ Yeley looked like he was going to the Daytona 500 right at the end. Floyd Mayweather's team and Kaz Grala in the 50 car just fly right on by. They get in a group, they get in a good draft, and JJ Yeley just had nothing for him. So yep, the 50 car, Kaz Grala is in the Daytona 500. His first Daytona 500 start will be on Sunday. Let's kind of switch over. The first duel was a fairly calm duel. There's been a say going into this race every year that the first duel or one of the duels is always going to be calmer than the other duel. That tends to happen every single year. Obviously, neither of the duels were extremely crazy tonight, but the second duel was definitely a little bit more crazy. We had a wreck at the finish. We had the winner of the second duel, Chris Buescher, actually have a little bit of a run-in with Joey Logano. Obviously, Joey Logano took credit for the wreck. If you saw the wreck, Joey Logano just turned down, tried to pull a block in the duel race. Not a very smart decision. Actually ended up messing up another Ford, Harrison Burton's car, the 21 car as well. He ran into Logano. Not sure why Logano would pull a block in a race like this, in the duel race. But he did do it. He made a mistake. He admitted to making the mistake. But obviously, anyway, a great win for Chris Buescher. That means that RFK's two cars have won the first two duel races. So the two duel races to start out the season. That's good for Brad Keselowski. Obviously, Keselowski didn't even make the Clash a couple of weeks ago at the Coliseum. And then he goes out there and wins his Daytona duel race. And then his teammate, or essentially his driver, his employee, wins the second duel race. So that's obviously great to see Brad Keselowski. And obviously not for me, but great to see for him. I'm a Kyle Busch fan, so I don't want to see Brad Keselowski do too good. But it is cool. It is cool to see Brad Keselowski and his driver Chris Buescher win the two duel races at Daytona. Another big takeaway from the two duel races that needs to be considered is it was extremely difficult to get into the draft. We saw this with Eric Almirola. We saw this with multiple drivers throughout the night. If you get out of that draft, or you are slower than the draft, you cannot catch up to them unless they let you in, and that's something that we have not seen as much in the past. Obviously, if you're way slower, you won't be able to catch up with the pack or catch up with the draft, but well, we saw cars just get blown on by, and you could not catch up. You could not stay in the draft with those cars. It's going to be very interesting and something we'll have to continue to watch moving into a 40-car field. I think we could see these cars spread out a whole lot. I hope we don't have a single-file train-style race in the Daytona 500, which is kind of a concern. We don't want to, have 200 laps of that with all these people watching. The Daytona 500 sold out. You're going to have millions watching on TV. It's the biggest race of the year. I don't think we want to see single-car racing the whole time. I don't think it will be, because I think the drivers played it a little more conservative tonight, but it will be interesting to see if drivers will be able to stay in the draft, and if we will have cars maybe spread out more. We could see, different packs. We could see packs of 10 or packs of 15 instead of a 40-car pack or a 30-car pack, which is what we're used to seeing. So that'll be interesting to watch as well, about how hard it'll be to stay in the drafts. So we have to continue to watch that. Also, the Biff. Greg Biffle is back in the Daytona 500. I believe it'll be his 15th Daytona 500 start and his 29th start at Daytona International Raceway. So the Biff made it. He was able to overdo Timmy Hill. Timmy Hill had a terrible, I didn't even know he was in the race, honestly. He was not doing very well at all. Timmy Hill was not. I think he was 3 laps down at one point. He was not consistent at all, not even in the mix whatsoever. And then, the Biff was running well. The Biff was in the top 10. Running very consistent. He was running in the pack and making some moves, which is obviously interesting to see. I know Greg Biffle was a great race car driver, even though he hasn't been in the car for quite some time. It is going to be interesting to see what he can do in the Daytona 500. Don't count him out. Don't count him out 100% for at least being a threat, because we saw what he did tonight. He was able to run up front with the big dogs. And it's going to be interesting to watch the Biff. I'm glad to see him. I'm excited to see Greg Biffle back in the Daytona 500, back in NASCAR, an old school NASCAR driver, a fairly popular NASCAR driver at that. So it's great to see him in there. Unfortunately, our F1 star, who was already guaranteed his spot in the Daytona 500, had problems to start out the event tonight. But he didn't even get to take the green flag on time due to some mechanical failures. But regardless, as long as you run a lap, essentially you're in the Daytona 500, so he was able to do that. So congratulations to him for making it in. And unfortunately, JJ Yeley and Timmy Hill will have to close up shop. We'll have to put the cars back in the hauler and take it back to their team, because they are not going to be in the 2022 Daytona 500. Greg Biffle and Kaz Grala have outdueled both of them. So that's obviously very interesting. Exciting. We have two. I was kind of hoping, I think most fans were kind of hoping that those two teams would get in, because they're fairly more popular. I think it'd be better to get more popular teams. And not that Kaz Grala is extremely popular, but Floyd Mayweather is. It's been kind of a big story that the money team and Mayweather is going to be in the Daytona 500. That's kind of been a bit of a talk this whole week. So interesting to see. We'll see how that team does. Are they going to be competitive? Are they going to win? Probably not. But it's still cool to see him in there. Now, Greg Biffle, I wouldn't completely count him out for winning the 500. He was doing incredible tonight, making moves at the right times. So obviously have to continue to watch and see how that plays into the Daytona 500. I know I talked a lot about the Daytona 500 tonight and what it's going to end up being and kind of like the hints from tonight. But that's really what the duels are. These drivers aren't taking the duels as serious as they would a regular season race. I mean, except for Logano wrecking himself, you don't see a whole lot of contact. You don't see a whole lot of issues in the Daytona Duels, at least typically. So that's why I kind of take what we get in the duels and try to put it in the Daytona 500, see if we can kind of predict what's going to happen, which obviously 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, you try to predict what happens at Daytona, and it doesn't happen. So, yep, but that's all there is to talk about after Thursday night. Dirty Air does return on Sunday night for the Great American Race. I'm extremely excited for it. My first regular season race or points race. I guess technically this is a points race now. I think they award points in the top 10s. But anyway, the first points race, the first regular season race for the show Dirty Air review video will be after the 2022 Daytona 500 on Sunday night. I hope you guys tune in. I'm super excited for it. I'm ready to talk about it. I'm just hyped to see the Daytona 500. It's going to be great. It's going to be spectacular. Hope Kyle Busch wins it. We're going to have, essentially, from what I'm hearing, reports from Adam Stern, we're going to have 130 to 150,000 people at the Daytona 500. I believe that's the most we've seen in quite some time to attend the event. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be great. I hope you guys watch it, and I hope you guys watch my review video after. That's it. That's all there's to talk about. And, of course, let's get rowdy.